Do, do, do. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. This is episode number 28, and here we are. We have director Mikeal Burgin, also a producer, also an actor. Welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me. What an honor.
So why don't we get started with the first short film that you directed with the Sea Closure.
Yeah, we're going way back now.
Well, I'm just going off a list here. So involved with the short film Closure.
Yeah, Closure was let me preface that by just saying I live in Iowa, and back in the beginning of around 2009, 2008, 2009, somewhere around in there, Iowa had some amazing tax credits for filmmaking.
Okay.
And we're talking like 50% off filmmaking. We had studios flocking to Iowa to film movies. And, I'd been involved in some indie prior to that. There was the rules were very loosely put together. And so we had a bunch of people in the state who were taking advantage of the tax credits.
Okay.
And just as quickly as the tax credits emerged, just like overnight, they were taken away from us, and they disbanded the tax credit program literally overnight. And the state of Iowa, all the indie filmmakers here, just kind of went in this big funk for quite a while. They were living high on the hog there for a couple of years, and they were getting very well paid. And all of a sudden, things changed, and everybody kind of got used to it. I knew some people that had actually quit their day jobs and were just going into filmmaking full time here in the state of Iowa. And so, I was kind of sitting around here listening to everybody kind of pout and whine about not having these tax credits anymore, and I was, kind of like trying to challenge that thought process and saying, we were making films before these tax credits even came to make our life so great. That has never changed. The spirit and the passion of filmmaking has never changed in the state. The only thing that changed was that somebody introduced lots of money to us. And so
okay,
we had a lot of indie filmmakers in the state that just kind of got jaded and lost their way because of the money.
And expected the money for quite some time.
Yeah. So, being an actor myself, I was kind of like, we should all get back to making movies. This is our goals shouldn't have ever changed. We are filmmakers. We should make movies to be making movies because we love it and it's a passion of ours. And, if someday, those paying gigs come along again, great. We're going to take advantage of those when it happens. But for right now, stop whining, stop complaining. Let's make movies. And I had a couple of filmmakers that kind of challenged me, and saying, if you think it's so easy, you should go ahead and do it. And being a very strong-willed, strong-minded person, I don't really ever back down from a challenge. So I said, all right, I can do that. And on a dare, I put together a quick, like, 2-page little script. And, about a month later, we shot it, and I really enjoyed it. The directing part, Closure, was new to me. It was a very nice learning experience. I developed a lot from that.
How
And
did you go about and cast your casting? How
uh,
did you?
casting was just it was very easy. Being an actor myself, I knew a lot of actors, and just called up a couple people who I knew and thought would be interested in doing it, and sure enough, they were. The rest was history. Um, all three of the actors that were in it were good friends of mine at the time, so um, it was very easy to find actors to be in it.
Cool.
Um,
Uh, Closure about without spoiling it for others.
Closure was a very simple sit-down conversation between a man and a woman discussing their breakup. And from there, it kind of gets revealed that there were some ulterior motives involved with the breakup, and some supernatural elements come into play towards the end. But
Okay.
most of the stuff I write and create have some underlying supernatural or horror elements involved with them. So
Okay.
that one was one of the first ones that I did, and I always like trying to mix drama with horror instead of going the typical route with these dumb characters that nobody cares about. Try to do it with a little bit of intelligence.
Okay. Did you have a favorite shot or scene that you remember while you were filming the project?
Um, no, not really. The movie itself, I think it's just barely over 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay.
It was pretty simple. We got a great shot. We had a close up of a wedding ring, and the sun was just right. And as we were kind of we had some amazing sparkles come out of the diamonds from it. Looked gorgeous, but that was just first time director's luck of the draw. I didn't set that up and mean to do that by any means. So
Um, uh, let's talk about your short film Shift from 2012.
Shift was a co-writing collaboration. Um, I guess I had written a majority of it, but it was about a you always hear these stories growing up, don't pick up hitchhikers, don't pick up hitchhikers, don't pick up hitchhikers. Well, what if, you pick up a hitchhiker and, that that story is true to a certain extent, but then you realize the warning that your parents always gave you of, don't accept rides from strangers, kind of comes back and overrides the rule of don't pick up hitchhikers. And so you've got two really bad people together in a car, and some really, really disturbing bad things happen between them. So
Okay. And casting the same as your previous film, or did you have a little bit more difficulty finding?
Actually, the two characters in Shift were also in Closure. So
Okay.
I'd worked with these two actors previously, and they were always go-to people for me. And Dan Hampel and Justin.
There,
What's that?
That you can remember on set or whatnot that was cool, or
Well,
did you have?
yeah. In this film, we had some pretty cool practical effects. We actually took a or an electric drill, and we screwed a 2-inch screw into the back of somebody's neck, and to paralyze them from the neck down. and some pretty good practical effects, close-up shots of the screw going into the neck, blood flowing out of it, and there's also some skinning going on, and this was as close to Hostel as I was able to get, so it was a little bit of a torture porn time, just an experimental film for me. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Working with those practical effects and seeing how cheesy they look on set when you're doing them, and then realizing how amazing they look on camera with the right angles and the right lenses is remarkable. So I hope to do more practical effects in the future.
So did you have any problems getting the film out? How was its reception?
We had sent it off to you know, a handful of film festivals. We're working on very small budgets, and I wasn't much of a director at the time. You know, I was still cutting my teeth and getting used to the process.
Understandable.
Even though there are certain aspects of it that really come naturally to me, working with the actors and getting them in the right mind frames and connecting with their characters is one of my strengths, being an actor myself. But really, a lot of the technical aspects of it, you know, I don't think I've touched a camera on any of the films that I've worked on more than once or twice, really. I just don't want to. Somebody else is in control of the camera. The director of photography knows what they're doing, and I kind of let them do it, and I rely heavily on them to help me understand some of the technical aspects. And if there's something I don't like, I talk it over with them and we change it. But yeah, it really it's a team effort, and I allow the team members to play to their strengths while I play to mine.
Let's talk about your short film, Bring Me a Dream. How did that come about, and how did you get inspired to use? Go ahead.
Yeah, Bring Me a Dream kind of spawned from a bit of the answer to your last question. Shift had played in a handful of film festivals, and we were nominated. I don't think we won any awards for the film, but my daughter was very young at the time, and you know, she's obviously grown up around filmmaking and acting in movies and the creative process. And she was a little disappointed that she wasn't able to go to these film festivals, you know, with my wife and I and my son sometimes. And so we came back from a film festival one weekend, and she was really sad and really down about it. And so I thought at that, you know, Shift was just not a movie at that age. It was appropriate for her to watch.
No.
So I used that motivation, being the good dad that I am, and told my daughter, you know, the next movie I'm going to direct, I'm going to write something that's kid friendly, that you can be in, and then you can be involved with the movie and making the movie, and you can go to film festivals with us if it gets accepted to any film festivals. And so we wrote a kid-friendly horror short. It's kind of in the vein of Goosebumps books, and yeah, my daughter was all excited about it, and she did a phenomenal job acting. She accepted direction very well, and that movie went on to play at, gosh, I want to say 17 or 18 film festivals, and I think we pulled in like 3 or 4 awards for that film alone.
Cool.
So yeah, it was very. It was a very good film for her and I both to work on. I think it opened a lot of eyes of my ability to direct actors, especially young ones. And Yeah, it was just another part of the growing process of directing and getting better with each film.
Well, she did a
Uh,
phenomenal job, and she's absolutely beautiful.
Well, thank you very much. She'll be very pleased to hear that you enjoyed her performance.
I absolutely did.
I did as well, too. I think she pulled off the child very well. In any case, let's talk about your film special,
Okay, so
2014.
yeah, Special is a film for me that is rather special. Ironically, it was another movie that really started to open people's eyes, really turn a lot of heads. Special. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the newspaper boy who was kidnapped out of Des Moines, Iowa, back in the 1980s. His name was Johnny Gosch.
I think I might have heard of that.
I have not. I'm so sorry.
If you're not familiar with it, there is an amazing documentary on Netflix called "Who Took Johnny." You will watch that entire movie with your jaw on the floor. It is so it's indescribable how insane that whole story is. I highly suggest you watch it. But being a preteen at the time that the whole Johnny Gosch abduction happened, I was terrified. Of course, this all happened, barely 2-hour drive from where we lived. So, I mean, it was like this high-profile abduction of a child in my backyard growing up. This is this is my Pennywise clown growing up. This is something that terrified me from as a child, and so it was something that stayed with me all these years into adult life, and it's one of my greatest fears. It was one of my greatest fears being abducted as a child, and now as a parent, it's one of my biggest fears having one of my children abducted. And so I really wanted to capture that fear and play off of it, and just try to capture that fear from both sides, not only the child side, but the parent side as well. And so that's kind of the inspiration for the movie Special, was the Johnny Gosch abduction. Oh, I also have.
Totally
I'm sorry, go ahead.
See that. I know a little bit about the story. I just don't remember much, but I remember it being quite an ordeal.
Yeah, he was one
back in the day.
Yeah, he was one of the first children to ever appear on milk cartons back in the 80s. So yeah, it's a pretty high profile case. So anyway, I really I wanted to mix a nice supernatural element into it as well. And one of my favorite Stephen King movies growing up was Carrie. And so I just wanted to think about, what would happen if somebody kidnapped a child who was special, and they didn't realize how special this child was, and really had no idea what they were getting themselves into when it happened. And as a result, some very, very bad things happened to these very, very bad people, and rightfully so. And it was just one of those things I wish that that would actually be a possibility for any of these children that are ever abducted, to somehow turn the tables on their abductors and kick their ass.
Most definitely. So no problems on set with any of the actors or actresses?
Well, the key role again was my daughter, and she was. We actually shot this on her birthday, and I think she was 2 years older from then when we shot Bring Me a Dream. So she's probably 10 or 11 at the time. And
Okay.
she was phenomenal. There's a lot of really difficult scenes.
Well,
So much
the
in
moment.
fact that I had family members that were a little upset with me for putting her through some of the things we put her through.
Especially that
And I'm sorry,
moment when you place her on the mattress and she wakes up next to the victim. That's got to be
yeah.
That's got to be something. In any
Yeah,
case,
I had some in-laws who were not very happy watching the movie.
Yeah, with the sniffing of her head part.
Yeah, that was a little tough. We actually we submitted this to film festivals, and normally you have film festivals that will wait to give you rejection notices. You know, when they send out notifications to all filmmakers. And on 2 occasions with our festival submissions, within a day or two of submitting special to other film festivals, I had rejection notices back from them. I'm quite certain they probably didn't make it through the entire movie, so it was kind of humorous.
Alrighty.
At the time. But
talk about
yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Talk. Go ahead. You were saying something about special effects.
Yeah, on the special effects on special, we had plans of using, and I love saying this term, a blood cannon. And my daughter, being so young, really was very, very nervous about being shot with this blood cannon. And we begged and pleaded with her for probably a half an hour to try to convince her that this is not going to hurt. She was afraid it was going to hurt. We're talking about shooting her with a blood cannon. So we didn't end up getting the shot that we wanted. We spared my daughter the trauma, and we had an actual person stand in for the shot. We didn't get the one we want. We ended up settling for a hand and an arm being sprayed with a much smaller blood cannon, but it would have been glorious had she let us do it.
Alrighty, so why don't we talk about the next film, My Friend Max from 2017.
Yeah, so My Friend Max really came about. Special played at so many film festivals. We won quite a few awards for that one as well. And the one common thing you start to notice when you go to all these film festivals is that there are lots of people, lots of filmmakers that you keep running into, and that was the case with Special. We'd gone around to a lot of film festivals with Bring Me a Dream, and we were running into a lot of the same film festival or a lot of the same filmmakers. Mm-hmm. One of the filmmakers we kept running into was a gentleman by the name of Luke Schutzel. And Luke had done a movie called Dust of War. It was a feature film, okay. Kind of a post-apocalyptic science fiction, kind of like Mad Max, cross between Mad Max and Star Wars almost.
Okay.
And Doug Jones happened to be in Dust of War, and Luke really adored my daughter at the time, and Luke looks a lot like Ryan Gosling, so my daughter was like infatuated with Luke, and they were, every time we'd see him at a film festival, she was like, "Oh, Luke's here! Let's go see Luke." So when Luke found out that my daughter absolutely loved Abe Sapien in the Hellboy movies, and that Doug Jones was her favorite actor, he was all like, I know Doug. Let's why can't we get a movie with your daughter and Doug in it? I was like, hell yes, let's do that. So I was thinking, Doug is always in heavy makeup, and he's rarely seen in his films, and so I wanted to create something that not only could Kaylin, my daughter, be involved in a movie with Doug, but one that she could interact with Doug and not Doug as a demon or a creature or a monster. And so, you know, I'm a big fan of the film Drop Dead Fred, and I've always liked the concept of imaginary friends, and I wanted to capture some of that magic from Drop Dead Fred and make it not as goofy and a little bit more down to earth and sentimental. I think we really captured that. I co-wrote Drop Dead Fred, or My Friend Max, with another filmmaker or screenwriter out of Omaha or the Nebraska area. His name is Chuck Matan. And I really like what we came up with. It was a really touching, sentimental story, and I think a lot of people, both men and women, can relate to it. You know, just growing up and feeling you know, a little misplaced and outcast at times, and it was something that you know, maybe drama is not necessarily my expertise, but it definitely was. I've got experience with it, and you know, the imaginary friend aspect is as supernatural, low-key supernatural as I've ever gotten. So it was a little bit different approach. I wasn't quite sure how to. I don't watch a lot of drama movies, so I don't understand how to shoot them as well.
My question is why question with My Friend Max is, why did you use that ending sequence with him? And how does he go from there? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, in early versions of the script, we were kind of toying with the idea that Max was somehow responsible for the death of Thea's father, and you know, part of his penance in the afterlife is that he is, you know, trying to help her grow up, and replacing the father that he helped, or that he caused her to lose. We ended up cutting a lot of that because we really felt that the just not explaining it and kind of leaving it up for people to try to, you know, piece together themselves added to the mystery of, you know, the imaginary friend and where they come from. And you know, that's a common question. You know, people want to know more about Max. You know, why was he there? What was his origins? Where did he go from there? And you know, really, he did his job for the most part, but he still hadn't fulfilled all the responsibilities he was supposed to fulfill with Thea, and so he had to go back to basically purgatory and await another assignment to try to earn his wings.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah,
most definitely. Michelle, do you have any questions?
Something that I had noted when watching this. I noticed to me, it seemed, and it just might be performance based, or you may have done this on purpose, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. I noticed there's kind of a little bit of pedophilia undertones. Was that done on purpose, or was that not even supposed to be construed that way? Or
I think you know, we definitely did not try to imply any sort of pedophilia by any means. I think there are times, you know, Max and Thea were so close that, you know, they were very comfortable with each other, and so they were very close to each other a lot of the times. And I think that kind of gave the impression you have this older man and this younger girl. It comes across, I think, you know, and he's in a prison jumpsuit the entire time. It comes across a little creepy. But it definitely was not implied by any means. I think that's, you know, a lot of people go to that, that they start to think that just because we've set that that whole scenario up with the way he looks and the way they interact with each other. You know, in one scene, she asks him if you know, why was he in jail? Did he hurt people? And he says yes, but he doesn't want to talk about it. So we never really fully understand what it was Max was in trouble for. And so I think that that also helps to, you know, potentially give that perception to some people. But no, pedophilia was the farthest thing from my mind in any of this. It definitely was not something that that we were hoping to portray for people.
Okay. Your I'm a Gun as much as we can. What is I'm a Gun about?
Oh, I'm a Gun. I was I've been wanting to move away from doing shorts and try to get into doing some features now. I feel, you know, comfortable enough with my directing that I want to get into something that's a little bit more substantial and has a little bit more possibility for some further recognition and further work for me, hopefully. And so I had written a script called Lockridge, and it's going to be very expensive to produce. And so I wanted to work on another project while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with Lockridge. And so I decided to go back and do another short. And we just threw a script together real quick of inspired by a couple of films that I absolutely adore. And just wanted to stay busy working on something. And I'm a Gun is what came out of it. And it's kind of a mix up of action and I'm kind of hesitant to say horror. There are horror elements to it, but it's definitely not scary by any means or terrifying. Okay. It's more implied horror, I guess. But it is there's action, there's suspense, there's comedy. It's just a mixture of everything. It's inspired by my love for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series and also the movie Leon the Professional. I just thought it would be cool to try to do something that would be inspired by both of those films and kind of mash them together. What would happen if Leon had to go take out the family members of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? You know, what would happen with that? So it by no means was meant to be something that was going to be groundbreaking cinema. It was a quick side project. We shot in 2 nights, and but you know, so after piecing it together and you know, every one of the movies that you create, you end up watching hundreds of times, and you get sick of watching them. And I'm a Gun's one of them. I just haven't gotten sick of watching. I still chuckle at it. I still enjoy watching it. It's a fun little film. I really enjoy it. So,
well, I'd definitely be in seeing if you could add to the story in another short film down the road from it. Most definitely. Why don't we talk about one of the productions that you're a producer of, one of your newer ones, Dark Light.
Yeah, Dark Light. Here we got back into the drama aspect, like My Friend Max. Again, this was another quick, really short film project. We wanted to just work on something to stay busy, and I was kind of contemplating there at the beginning of 2017 where I wanted to, you know, focus my attentions on. If I wanted to stay focused on writing and directing, or if I wanted to, you know, write and produce and maybe act in some of these and maybe not direct as much. And so this was just kind of a collaborative effort of some area filmmakers who are on the rise in Iowa. A couple of brothers named Nick and Carl Bush. They've got a phenomenal eye for great camera work. And so I wrote this little thing and put it together and asked Nick and Carl if they wanted to be involved. They did, and man, I really feel like they knocked it out of the park. It's a moving film. Only I think it's less than 5 minutes long, but it's got a lot of heart and soul and story packed into those 4.5 minutes. It's
small punch.
A lot of fun. And Dark Light is available on YouTube for anybody to go watch if they want to check it out.
Cool. Now, did you have anything to do with the actors or anything? Were you on the set at all, or the curiosity?
Yeah. I was the lead actor in that one, and we had my daughter was one of the actors again in a small role, and then another actress that I've worked with a few times here in Iowa, Rachel Wells, fantastic actress out of Iowa. Really enjoy working with her. But yeah, it was a pretty small group. We had a handful of extras in one night, and they were all local people that I knew that have always, you know, being a director, you always get these people like, hey, if you ever need me for a role, you know, keep me in mind. And so I reached out to this list of people that I'm supposed to always keep in mind, and sure enough, they all wanted to be involved. So they all came down, and freezing cold, and they shivered for 2 hours, and then we sent them home. But they all enjoyed it. They all loved it.
Start a good rapport with people as a director, and you treat your people decently. They always want to come back for more.
Yeah. Again, this is a team effort. I mean, there's no small roles. Even if you're an extra, set and take it seriously. Because the director is expecting you to. And these people, they have so much enthusiasm and so much passion to be in movies and have bigger roles and everything like that. And the ones that show up, who take it seriously, who want to be involved in something and want to produce good, solid performances, your director is going to remember that. Even if you're just an extra, they're going to remember that about you. They're going to want to work with you again. They're going to invite you back and maybe next time you might have a couple lines, or even, get a co-starring role eventually. It's a process, and people have to feel comfortable working with you.
Whenever you're in the independent, I always think of independent films as the stepping stones to a broader life.
Right.
Even if you're in 20 or 30 of them, these end up, if your entire life, people remember your performances regardless. To it,
yeah, absolutely, they
do. Is seen by the director, seen by you, and seen by others. So, go ahead. About your newer film project that evidently you're a producer of, John W.T.'s Gore Feast. You get involved with that?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not real sure where that project's at. John Shelton is a filmmaker friend of mine out of England, I think. He's over there in Europe somewhere. I believe he's around in England. Anyway, you know, I've gotten close with John via the internet. He's a good guy, and he was putting together a film project and needed some funds to make it work. And being a filmmaker that always supports other aspiring filmmakers, I supported John's fundraising campaign and ended up getting a credit for his film, and I'm not quite sure where it ever went from there, but hopefully he's still working on it, and it's getting close to being finished. I haven't seen an end result yet, but I know John is he's a quality guy, and I'm sure that the money that I contributed to his film was well spent. So
cool. Now let's get into a little bit of your acting. So you were in 2007. You were in a short film called "Count on Me." How was your experience in that short film?
That was my first experience working on film. And it was, we shot outside in the middle of February, and my character wasn't wearing much more than just a simple zip-up hoodie. So it was freezing. It was horrible. The director, Josh Guffey, he was fantastic to work for. He was, he had a lot of people there on set. It was very cold. There was a lot of stress, but it was fantastic. It was a fantastic experience. I learned a lot for acting for film on that experience.
Okay.
But yeah, it was just a small role. I was a thug drug dealer, and I ended up getting shot and dying. So.
What was the short film somewhat about? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was it was a drug deal gone bad, and the cops were undercover police were there to try to bust a bunch of big drug dealing ring. There was a big shootout in a pedestrian mall. I want to say it was reminiscent of the big shootout in Heat with Pacino and De Niro, but I know it wasn't anywhere remotely close to being as cool as that shot. I think that was probably some inspiration that Josh had because it's definitely had that atmosphere and that feel to it. And we did the best we could for an indie film. But yeah, Josh is awesome. I hope to someday be able to work with Josh again.
Cool. So the next film that you worked on was called Jen. How was your experience on that film?
Which one was it? I'm sorry, I didn't hear what the title was.
Blog.
No, I think it was Jenny's blog, the video.
Oh, Jenny's blog. Yes, Jenny's blog was an early attempt at viral video internet like episodes. It was a fun little film where I was it was kind of a found footage zombie apocalypse starting up. So I was a primary zombie called the Shuffler, and I was this shuffling zombie that followed the two stars around a little bit, and eventually I got shot in the head and died in this one too. So first two films, I got shot and died in both of them, but I guess in the second one I was already dead. So killed a second time.
So, being on that set, or where that was filmed?
Yeah, the writer and the director was actually my mixed martial arts instructor and coach, and he needed somebody who really, had some acting experience and could basically do some stunt work. And so,
Okay.
you're going to get shot in the head, we need you to fall down and, not get hurt and yada, yada. Yeah, I can do that. No problem. So I show up on set and I walk up to him, and the first thing he says to me when I show up, he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Good." And he goes, "So how do you feel about getting hit by a car?" I'm like,
Oh.
Am I going to get hurt? And he's like, No, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. All right, let's do it then. So I got hit by a car a couple times. And unfortunately, being a found footage film, it's all about where the camera's set, and got hit by a car a couple times, and I don't think it ever made it into the final cut of the film because they just didn't have any good shots of it. So,
did you get hurt though?
Okay.
No, not really. I mean, the only thing, I'm falling off the car onto a gravel road, and falling onto the gravel was no picnic, but
oh yeah, that's always lovely.
But bruises heal, and they mend. As long as it looks cool on film, which I didn't know at the time. Yeah. Then I'm willing to take those bumps and bruises, but it's always safety first. Make sure that person that's doing these stunts is capable of doing them. And
Cool.
Working with Bruce, I was comfortable and agreed to do it. So I'm glad I did.
Let's talk about the next project from 2010. It's Splatter, Love, Honor, and Paintball.
Yes, Splatter was one of the films that was made in Iowa with the tax credits, and it was a paintball comedy, kind of the loser whose life is in the gutter. He's trying to get his life together. Decides him and his buddies are going to team and enter a paintball tournament to win back the love of his life. And I played kind of a sidekick of the villain. I've been bald for so many years. I've been shaving my head for probably 20 years, and so a lot of the roles I'm always getting are villainous roles for some reason. I think it has to do with my bald head, but
villains are
this one was no
always
exception.
bald.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got that Jason Statham look to you.
Yeah, there's been a few times I've been told that. But yeah, I mean, I went from being an extra to, I think I had a few lines in this one, and I was doing the process. I loved making movies and loved being a part of them, and things just escalated for each one that I did. I was willing to do what needed to be done to get shots, and I was also the stunt coordinator on this one. And
Cool.
Worked with some kids that were doing some jumps and some falls, and it was just an all-around phenomenal experience. Can't say enough about Splatter. I wish that it would finally see the light of day at some point and actually get a DVD release or something. So it's a quality movie and it needs to be seen. So
Most definitely. How about your next from 2010, The Experiment?
The Experiment was a Sony Pictures movie, I believe. It starred Adrian Brody, Forrest Whitaker, Clifton Collins Jr., Cam Giganday, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He was the bad vampire in the first Twilight movie. It was packed full of Travis Fimmel, who at that time was kind of unknown. He is the lead in the History Channel Vikings TV show now.
Okay.
He's kind of turned into a big star. I mean, we had all these big name stars on there. It was just a blast to be around them and to learn so much from just being around them and observing their performances and how they go about it. It was really remarkable. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be involved in that film. Even though I was a featured extra, I'm in the movie throughout the movie. You see me all the time. I wasn't important enough to be given credit in the film. So,
Be like, hey,
but I played.
There I am.
What's that?
At least you get some screen time, and you can. Oh, there I am.
Right. It's I'm one of the prisoners. He had I think 12 prisoners and like 6 guards. It's based off of the German movie Das Experiment, I believe, which was based loosely off of the Stanford experiment from the 70s, where they had placed an ad for prisoners and guard volunteers, and they were kind of observing how when you give somebody power, how easily they start to abuse that power, and see when things started to come off the rails, they kind of pulled the plug on it. But in the experiment, in the movie, obviously they're not as quick to pull the plug, so things escalate and they get out of control, and again, bad things happen. And ironically, I did not play a bad guy in this one.
Your next short film that you acted in, called Trophy Wife.
Trophy Wife was I have such love for Trophy Wife. Trophy Wife was kind of a Tales from the Crypt type movie. And it was the first time that anybody ever gave me the opportunity to, kind of demonstrate what my acting abilities and skills really were. And it's a troubling tale about a man who is a taxidermist, and his goal in taxidermy is to be an award-winning taxidermist. And he's got some marriage problems because he's so focused on this goal that he eventually ends up killing his wife and kind of doing what taxidermists do to create the perfect display with his wife. So it was it's definitely kind of a Norman Batesy type creepy role. Loved playing it. It is on YouTube. You can find it, or maybe even on Vimeo. But yeah, it was a phenomenal thing. I such love for Pat Atkinson, who wrote it. She took a chance on me, and I greatly appreciate it. So yeah, I've got a lot of love for Trophy Wife. We still on?
You broke up.
Repeat what you just said.
That I have a lot of love for Trophy Wife. It's definitely eerie and violent and gory and a little sad too.
So why don't you tell us Sway, where you play a mercenary?
Sway was kind of a crime action drama. Yes, I was the assassin, the hired hitman, chasing down the good guys who were trying to take down pharmaceutical companies, and I'm the hired hitman to hush him up. Was a fun shoot. Sway, it had a very small festival run. I don't know if it's online or not, but I think it was. I don't think it was a student film by any means, but it was definitely a couple of guys out of Iowa City, Iowa, who were directing, I think, one of their early films, and it was very lofty, very lofty script. Very they had a lot of great ideas with it, and they executed it very well. It certainly didn't look or feel like it was one of their first films, but I felt like I had a fairly fun role. And again, it was nice being able to be the bad guy. I do kind of enjoy being the bad guy, killing a lot of people and chasing people down and just being a badass for a short, scrawny, 5'8" little guy. It's nice to be the badass every once in a while.
Most definitely. Next role. Play a mailman in Collapse.
Yeah, Collapse was another zombie film I was in, or that I worked on, I should say. Collapse was done by another couple guys here in Iowa during the film incentive tax credits era, and it starred Chris Mulkey and Karen Landry. Chris Mulkey is one of those character actors that you see in a million things, but you just don't know his name. Great guy, great actor. Was really fun working with him. We had Linnea Quigley from Return of the Living Dead was in it. Just a lot of, I don't necessarily want to say big names, but they definitely are what I would consider to be famous people, and it was fun working with them and seeing again their craft and how they go about working and taking on roles. Unfortunately, I was supposed to have a big fight scene with Chris Mulkey as a zombie, a mailman zombie, and I think production was running a little bit behind schedule, and so one of the scenes that got cut was that one. Unfortunately, that was it was a little bit of a bummer, but I was also the stunt coordinator on that one, and worked with a lot of the actors, and we had actors throwing their hands through windows and stuff like that. So it was keeping everybody safe, and
you always worry about what's gonna in the final cut, know what I mean?
Right. Yep, absolutely. But yeah, Collapse was another good experience that I had, and that one I'm pretty certain you can get that on Amazon Prime. The DVD is available on Amazon. Cool little zombie film. Check it out if you get a chance.
Next film that you're in, James in The Offering.
The Offering was serial killer movie. I was ironically not a bad guy in this one. I was a sheriff's deputy. It was a pretty small role, but it was fun. It was the same producer that done Collapse and Splatter, actually, as a matter of fact. So it was, again, another prime example of you keep showing up and you keep taking it seriously, you keep doing good work, and they're going to ask you back. They keep asking you back, and that was another one. The Offering is out on DVD. I think you can probably. I haven't looked for it on Amazon Prime, but it might be out there.
Okay.
There was some fight choreography I did for that one. The fight, the fight between the sheriff and the serial killer at the end is choreographed by me and another mixed martial artist, Lee Casebolt, who we kind of put that thing together. It was fun. We had to teach a actress who's, I don't know, maybe 5'6" and maybe 120 pounds soaking wet, how to defend herself against a guy who was like 6'1" and 200 pounds. So she actually she did fairly well, being a tough broad there for a while, kicking some ass. I really I enjoyed working with Diddy. And if you do enough searching on my Facebook page, you'll find a video of her throwing me around and in training. It's one of those old school cell phone videos. It's not very good quality, but you still get the impression that she knows what she's doing. So I think we taught her well.
Cool. Okay, so a video short that you were in from 2011 where you played Jake and Ninja Bitch.
Ninja Bitch was Pat Atkinson, who wrote Trophy Wife. This was, I feel like this was her homage to Kill Bill. And she had a daughter that was kidnapped, and she was this secret this woman who had secretive ninja skills, going to rescue her daughter. And I was the ass kicking sidekick for the big mob boss. So I had a big fight scene with Pat, and these knives and swords and all sorts of blood and kicking and punching, and it was a blast. So yeah, it was Ninja Bitch was fun. Again, I think it was a little bit of a smaller role for me, but I'm always thankful for any role, and love working with Pat. Anything that she is a part of. So
cool. Let's talk about your next.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, talk about your next film, Demonica.
Demonica was from the same makers of Collapse, the zombie movie. Now they're doing a demon movie that took place in the 80s. I want to say their inspiration was the movie Night of the Demons. And again, they had Linnea Quigley, who was actually in Night of the Demons, the original Night of the Demons. And I played a small role at the very beginning of a stranger in this old pub, kind of back in the medieval times, who wasn't going to pay his bill. And then it turns out he's the demon, and he kills everybody in the bar, like rips them to shreds, punches through chests, and all sorts of bloody, gory, fun stuff. It was a good time. Snapped some guy's neck, and this, I don't know who this actor was. I had never worked with him at the time, but and I haven't worked with him since. But man, when I snapped his neck, he dropped like a rock. Man, it was he sold it so well. It was a blast. Yeah, Demonica, check it out if you get a chance. But it takes place in the 80s, and these kids are locked inside of a skating rink, and you got all these demons trying to chase them down and kill them, and they end up having a roller derby with the demons at the end to try to survive. It's it's pretty crazy. It's definitely a good time.
Let's talk about your next video short, Lunchtime.
Lunchtime. That was a short that was I was a bit of a lead in. I was a cocaine addict, high on cocaine, and my buddy and I went in to have lunch and could not comprehend the details of the menu, and really just had an interesting time trying to order lunch. So yeah, it was more of a comedy. I don't necessarily consider myself a comedian, but you know, we had
got to try every role at least once.
Yeah. Let's just say I haven't gotten any more comedic roles since then, but it did win an award at a film festival for it was called the WTF Award. So if that tells you anything, it's got to be floating around out there somewhere online as well. It's worth checking out. It's fun.
So the next video short is Fortune Miss Beneath Nathaniel Crane.
Yeah,
from
Fortunate. Yeah, it was the same production company that did Lunchtime, and it was more of a romantic drama, just a fortunate meetup of a man and a woman on a. This is going to sound terrible when I say it, but on a street corner. It's not that kind of movie, I swear. But
not that kind of meetup.
She was there to meet somebody that she had never met, and ended up getting lost in the city, and got on the wrong street, and ended up meeting my character instead, and they ended up hitting it off. But he was there waiting for his ride to go overseas as a military man. So it was a fortunate misfortune that they met, because as they started to really develop a fondness for each other, it was abruptly halted. And I won't tell you if they eventually got back together or not, but you know, there was a happy ending. So
was there anything that you're
I didn't
on set that mentions this production company previously, or how was it with that specific production company?
You know, I worked with them, just being involved in so many films around Iowa. You know, you end up connecting with other filmmakers, and you know, Media Adventures was just a production company that I really connected well with, and have a lot of respect for, and they're fantastic people to work with. This film was the first film that I ever had to do. It was my first on-screen kiss.
Oh,
being a married man.
Yeah, you have to go home to the missus and wipe the lipstick off.
Yeah. She knew I was going to do it beforehand. I broke the news to her, but she was fine with it. My wife is amazing. I call her my tolerant supporter. She's very tolerant of all this craziness that I involve myself in and our family in, and I couldn't do it without her. So big kudos and big cheers to my wife Jessica for being so awesome.
Your next short film from 2015, where you play in Leaving Kansas, Deputy Schmitz. You play?
Yeah, this was a really good story. The screenwriter that I co-wrote My Friend Max with had written a short about a cancer patient who was suffering, and was trying to go across state lines to a state where it was legal to buy medical marijuana, And so she enlisted the help of a friend to take her because she was so sick and, weak, and ended up, coming back across state lines. They get pulled over. I'm the dickhead cop who has to try to ruin everything for this cancer patient and take them to jail. And, again, I'm playing the bad guy. But it was a great story. Really opens up a lot of discussion for the use of marijuana medically, what it can do for patients, and that it really does have some value in the medical industry. And I think we need to really definitely start to look at marijuana in a different way. It's definitely it's definitely a taboo subject, but I think films like this, hopefully, if they do anything, they help to shed some more light onto the subject and make it not as taboo, and create an opportunity for people to openly discuss about things that are considered scandalous. So.
Michelle,
okay, well, is there anything that you can tell us about the project that's still in production for Sons and Daughters of Thunder?
Sons and Daughters of Thunder. It's a period piece about slavery, and I'm a terrible bigot townsperson. Again, the bad guy. But I don't know that it's finished yet. It's been a couple years now, but it's a feature film. I know the award-winning couple who are producing it. They've won a lot of awards. A lot of their films play on PBS, and they get a lot of, they're more educational films. This one's kind of a docudrama, and it's based off of real events. And I'm just a townsperson in the meeting hall who is very vocal about his dislike of Black people, and it's completely 180 degrees different from how I am in real life. And I want to say, if there's a role that was ever really super challenging for me, that one was it. I had to use a lot of really bad language, and just really be it's hard getting into a character like that you despise.
Yeah, if you hate them, it is hard to be them.
Yeah, and it's really difficult to get to that point internally, and then once you do, coming down from it is really quite depressing. And it was filming a couple hours away from where I live, and so I was coming back from set after a day of shooting, and the couple hour drive back home was really did me well to kind of just calm down and just stare out from behind the steering wheel for a couple hours.
Because you definitely need to decompress when you're working on with a role like that.
Would you say that was you had to play?
I'm sorry, say again?
Would you say that was your darkest role that you've had to play?
I don't know if it was necessarily the darkest role. I think Trophy Wife was probably my darkest role. This one was definitely the most uncomfortable role for me to try to get into character for.
Okay.
It just it wasn't something that you find yourself. with things like you know, killing my wife and stuffing her, and you know, only sick and twisted people do things like that in life. But when you sit back and you realize that there are people in the world who actually think the way that my character thought and behave like my character behaved, and realize that it's an everyday struggle for many people to deal with others who are like that. It's really it's really hard for me to explain. But it's
to think that there are still people out there like that.
Yeah, it's just it's sad, and it's
like
hard to wrap your head around.
Every day, it would hard to be around that kind of person.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm thankful for the role. I think if I ever took on another role like that, I would be, I probably would approach it differently in how I prepared for it. But I wouldn't shy away from a role like that, because again, I think roles like that, similar to the role I played in Leaving Kansas, where you create an opportunity for people to talk about these situations that are really quite trivial when you peel back the layers of the onion. Bigotry is just it's so juvenile. It's so ridiculous. It really is. And if we can help create an opportunity for people to understand that, I think it's a good thing. So I would not shy away from taking another role like that. Although that is one typecasting I would not like to be typecast as.
A good learning experience too,
Absolutely.
so that you know exactly what you as an actor can take under such levels of had to portray. So,
for sure,
Michelle. How about Wonderland?
Wonderland.
Your next role.
Produced, written, directed
you play
by
Sergeant Rock.
Stephen Luke. Yeah, Sergeant Rock has no connection to the comic book Sergeant Rock. So, but it's a war movie based on Battle of the Bulge. And you know, Wonderland, you know, it took place in the winter, so it's you know, walking in a winter Wonderland. And I have a co-starring role along with Stephen Luke, who wrote, produced, and directed it. He has done a couple of war movies. He's worked with the likes of Dolph Lundgren and Mickey Rourke, and you know, he's just the guy's remarkable and amazing, and I can't tell you enough good things about him. He's
would you say he's more mainstream?
He's definitely, I guess, you know, as mainstream as war movies get. To me, I'm not a fan of war movies. There were some things that I took for granted going to the set of a war movie, and that is that you know, war people who are really into history and study these wars in the military they take it to extremes, kind of, you know, like the way that horror fanatics take horror movies to the extreme, and you know, when you look at like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre versus the new Leatherface movie that just came out recently, and how the new Leatherface movie really just didn't follow the source material by any means, and how much hate that movie received. That's how these people are, about who are, you know, they study the military, and they're big fanatics about wars and the military. So I was just not prepared.
Military.
What's that?
Band fanboys of war and military are really different species.
Well, I'm sure they say the same thing about me with all my horror movies, but I guess I just wasn't prepared for that. I didn't expect it, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for their attention to detail. You can't hold the gun like this. Things like this. It was just really, it was very eye-opening. So, great experience for me. If I'm ever asked to do another war movie again, I'll definitely approach it differently. But it was a fantastic film. We had Tom Berenger in it. Tom was in Platoon, Major League. Tom was great. I didn't have any scenes with Tom directly, but Tom was on set quite a few times and had a great time shooting that movie. Even though, again, stuck out in the cold all winter long.
Well, the last question that I have for you before we end the show and let you go for the evening is: do you specifically with films in Iowa, or do you actually go out to travel to local you had to city?
So. Again, I think you're breaking up there a little bit. I think your question was if I film exclusively in Iowa. Is that your question?
My question was, do you stick with only Iowa films, or do you get out and travel? What?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, in either capacity, acting or directing. I mean, I love filming in Iowa. It's where I live. You can get to any spot in Iowa within a few hours drive. So anything is relatively close for me. But that being said, I don't care where a film is being shot. If somebody wanted me down in Florida or up in Alaska, to shoot a film, I'm going there. That's just that's where it's filming. That's where I need to be. How do I get there? Yeah. Am I flying? Am I driving? Am I hitchhiking? What tell me where I need to be. Yeah. When you need me there, and I'll be there. So.
Well, I thank you for coming on to the show to discuss your acting and your filming, and your producing capabilities. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. What an honor, and be able to somebody want to sit there and talk to me for 80 minutes about my movies and filmmaking career, and that's I'm tremendously honored. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you so much for joining us.
And Michelle, thank you for joining us.
I think every single, they're an underdog as an actor or they're a filmmaker, everyone has a different perspective. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish in my interviews with actors and directors alike. And I thank you for letting me practice on you. So, yeah. Hopefully maybe you can come back and join us for a film discussion maybe in the future, where we have those on Tuesday nights or something like that.
Just let me know. I'd love to.
So I'm gonna bid you and hopefully I'll be able to get I've got a cool ass interview or intro these episodes that I'll get you the extended cut for you yourself to keep.
Awesome.
I've cut the intro down to for the public, so you'll definitely get a cool treat. I created the intro myself out of some techno.
Love it.
Have a good evening and being with us, and you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Yeah, you do the same. Happy holidays to you guys.
Most definitely.
Happy holidays to you.
All right. Take care, everybody.